Alrighty guys, we're going to do a video on the practice test for Unit 5, solving and graphing inequalities. This is for Algebra 1. Let's begin. Question number 1. It says, you must be no more than 46 inches tall to get on the little kid ride at Disneyland. So, no more than 46 inches tall. That means you cannot be 47 inches. You can't even be 46 and a half inches. You could be 46 or anything less because it's a little kid rider. So what inequality would show that your height has to be 46 or less? Well, that would be this one. Height has to be less than or equal to 46 inches. This one's just less than 46. This one's greater than 46. This one's greater than or equal to 46. And of course it says no more. That means less than or equal to 46. So we take a look at those answers. That's why this one's green and the other ones are not. Number 2, it says you must be at least 18 years of age to vote, which is true. So at least 18 years. Does that mean, could you be 16? No, you have to be at least 18. Could you be 18? Yeah. Could you be 19? Yeah. Could you be 99? Yeah. So when I say at least 18 years of age, that means that you could be 18 or more. Now, what inequality represents that? That would be that your age must be greater than or equal to 18. Your age is greater than or equal to 18. So that's why that one is marked green and all the other ones are marked red. Number 3, we have an inequality graphed on a number line right here. And I don't know if you could see this, but it's an open dot at -5 and the arrow is going to the left, okay? So it's an open dot at -5 and going to the left. Now I hope we all remember that anything on the left side is less, anything on the right side is greater, okay? So where's the shading at? It's to the left, so I'm going to say that my answer is X is less than. Now, here's another one. If this is a solid dot, you're going to put a solid line underneath the inequality. Again, if this is a solid dot, you put a solid line underneath the inequality. And if you look at it, that's an open dot. So it's not solid, so I am not going to put a solid line underneath my inequality. And that value is at -5, so the answer is X is less than -5. Not less than or equal to, that would have been a solid dot. X is less than -5. So that one's the answer, green dot right there. The other ones are incorrect. Moving on. We have another number line right here. There's a solid dot at 7 and it's going to the right. Okay, solid dot means that it's going to have a solid line underneath your inequality. But anyways, let's start writing the inequality. X is what? Is it less than 7? Or is it greater than 7? Is it going to the left, which would be less than, or is it going to the right, which would be greater than? It's going to the right, so X is greater than the value of 7, and it is a solid dot, so that means that you must put a solid line underneath your inequality. There's your answer. X is greater than or equal to 7, which is this one. X is greater than or equal to 7. Checking our answers there. That's the only one that has a green dot. Let's move on. Finally, we get to some more interesting type of questions. Same concept. You have a number line here, and you got to know what that answer is represented on this number line. So again, we're talking about x's here. X is it less than -6 or is it greater than -6? Again, less than is to the left, greater than is to the right. This does get shaded to the left, so X is less than -6. I don't know if you see that right there. X is less than -6. Okay, so sorry about that. You already saw the answer. But anyways, X is less than. It's not a solid dot, so you don't put a solid line underneath the inequality. X is less than -6. Now, let's look through all of these options. And right here it says X is greater than -6. So that would be incorrect. Do not pick that one. That one's wrong. Okay, now these other ones are inequalities that still need to be solved. So you need to solve them and see if it actually gives you this answer of X is less than -6. So how would you solve this inequality? You want to get X by itself on one side of the inequality. And the problem is, where's your x at? Is it on the left side of the inequality or the right side of the inequality? It's on both sides. So you don't want it on both sides. Let's just get it to one side, and it's always better to get the x to the left side. Okay, but if you do decide to get it to the right side, that's okay. You could solve with x on the right and then flip everything at the very end. Anyway, on this one, I am going to subtract x. This will read 2x, take away 1x, that's 1x, is less than, and the negative 12 comes down. You don't need to put the 1 in front of the x. That's just saying x is less than negative 12, and that's obviously the incorrect answer. So don't pick that one. This is wrong also. This one over here perhaps, again, you want the x on the left side, but even if you did decide to get it to the right side, you could do that. For example, I'm going to subtract 12. No, I'm going to add x and add x, giving me a new inequality. I want to write it up here. I have 12 left over on the left side. That's what I have left, the positive 12, and then a less than symbol, and then negative 3x plus x, that is a negative 2x. Now I need to solve getting x by itself on the right side in this case. So I really do have a negative 2 times x. I don't have a x minus 2 where I do a plus 2 to get rid of a minus 2. This is not a minus 2. This is a negative 2 times x. So how do you get rid of the multiplication of negative 2? You do the opposite, divide by negative 2. And what you do to one side, do to the other. And this is the one rule of solving inequalities compared to solving equations, that if you ever multiply or divide by a negative, that's what we're doing here, we're dividing by a negative 2, you must flip the inequality symbol. So the negatives 2's, they cancel, the x comes down, the inequality symbol gets changed to a greater than symbol, and 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. So this is the answer. However, it's better to write it with the x on the left side and the number on the right side. Okay, so this is 100%, this is 100% correct. But if you read it, it says negative 6 is greater than x, and you want to talk about x, you don't want to talk about negative 6. So when you read it backwards, that's when it really makes sense. X is less than negative 6. Since it's opening up to the negative 6, that means that x is less than negative 6. The better thing to do is to just flip everything the way it should be. Put the x over here, the negative 6 over there, and of course, if it was opening up to the negative 6, it has to continue opening up to the negative 6. So here's the final correct answer with the variable on the left side. And as you could see, this answer is the answer that we have up here. So when we look at our answers, that's why we select that one. The other ones were obviously incorrect. Let's move on. Number 6. Okay, I hope everybody could see this. I know it's really tiny. That is an open dot at 7 going to the left. So what does that mean? That means that your x, where your x is going, we know that it's going to the left. So to the left is a less than symbol. To the right is a greater than symbol. To the left is less, to the right is greater. Now it is an open dot. It's not solid. It's not filled in. So you're not going to put a solid line underneath this inequality. You're going to leave it like that. So x is less than 7. That's the answer represented on this number line right here. Okay, now what we need to do is solve each of these inequalities to see which one actually gives us that answer, x being less than 7. And obviously you could already see the answer here. But I'm going to work through these anyway. If you divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7, your answer will be x. Because you divided by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. It would become a greater than or equal to positive 7. And obviously that's x is less than 7, not x is greater than or equal to positive 7. Another thing that I recommend is first thinking about whether you have an open dot or a solid dot. It's an open dot. You know you're not going to have a solid line underneath it, which means that you could have skipped doing this one because you already automatically know this one's wrong because it has a solid line underneath it. And we know that if it does have a solid line underneath it, then it would be a solid dot, not an open dot. So I would definitely check that first. That way you could just skip doing that one. Now this next one, actually on this particular screenshot, there's an error. This should be a -1 right there. Okay, a -1. So bear with me. Sorry about that. So we need to solve this next one. I am going to multiply both sides by either 7 or -7. It's up to you. If you want to get rid of both the 7 and the negative at the same time, you can multiply both sides by -7, flip the inequality symbol, and you'll be done. Or you could just get rid of the 7 first and then get rid of the minus second. totally up to you. I'm going to get rid of the 7 first. Times 7 times 7. The 7s cancel. What do I have left? I have a negative x. I didn't multiply by a negative, so it's still the inequality. And on the other side of the inequality, I have a negative 7. So now I need to get rid of this minus in front of the x. I want x by itself. So I either multiply both sides by negative 1 or divide both sides by negative 1. Divide both sides by negative 1. Either way, you're going to have to flip that inequality symbol. So your answer will be x is less than positive 7, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, which makes that your answer, as you can see up here. Okay. Again, you're going to have to, you might not get lucky. I mean, you're not going to see which one's the right one. So you're going to have to guess and see which one actually works. You might want to go through and do all of them anyway. So just for kicks here, I'm going to continue. Add 1, add 1. I have x is greater than 7. If I flip this whole thing, it'll read x on the left side, 7 on the right side. It has to open up to the x that says x is greater than 7. And we know that that's incorrect because it's supposed to be x is less than 7 to the left. Same thing with this one. Add 6, it'll say x is greater than 7, which we know is incorrect. Anyways, that's enough on this one problem. Let's move on. Number 7, we're going to solve this inequality. It's 2 steps. Let's get rid of you want to get x by itself on one side of the inequality. You don't want the plus 10. You don't want the minus sign. You're going to subtract 10. We do to one side, do to the other. Subtract 10. What do we have left? We have a negative x is greater than or equal to negative 17. So we do have a negative in front of the x, so you don't want the negative. You could either multiply both sides by negative 1, or you could divide both sides by negative 1. Either way, the signs are going to change, and you're going to have to flip it, because that's the one difference of solving an inequality compared to solving an equation, that if you multiply or divide by a negative on your last step, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. My answer will be positive x. Flip that inequality symbol, and it becomes a positive 17. So x is greater than or equal to 17. And if you notice, none of those answers say that, so none of these would be the correct answer. Finally, we're getting to some multi-step problems here. Let's begin by doing the easiest thing possible here, which would be moving the negative 5 over to the other side. How do you do that? You simply do a plus 5 and a plus 5. So let me rewrite what I have here. I'm going to rewrite it up here. I have a negative x over 6 is greater than or equal to, what is negative 9 take plus 5? That is a negative 4. Okay, so now I normally have been multiplying by 6, and then getting rid of the negative by dividing by negative 1, dividing by negative 1. I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I am going to multiply both sides by negative 6. Both sides by negative 6. That way the 6's cancel and the negatives change to positives. Okay, so what do I have left? I have an x, but since I did multiply by a negative on my last step, I must flip that inequality symbol. And of course, negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. So this is my answer to this slightly more entertaining inequality. X is less than or equal to 24, which is right here. That's why that one's selected green and the other ones are red. Moving on. This one's definitely more fun. We want to solve, but the goal of solving is to get the variable by itself on one side. So is the u on the left side or is the u on the right side of the inequality? It's on both sides. So you don't want a u on both sides. So let's get rid of one of the u's. I recommend moving your variables to the left side always. That way you could end up with like x is greater than something or x is less than something. So I always like to move my variables to the left. Okay, and the numbers to the right. So let's do exactly that. Let's move that 4 over by subtracting 4, and then we will have a 4u left over on the left side. The inequality stays the same because we did not multiply or divide by a negative. The 8u comes down, and we end up with a minus 24 over here. Okay, so now let's move that 8u to the other side by subtracting 8u, giving us a new inequality that reads negative 4u is greater than negative 24. Again, the inequality did not change because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. Now I'm at my final step here, and I am going to divide by negative 4, divide by negative. And when you do divide by a negative, this guy has to flip. So our final answer will be u is less than positive 6. U is less than positive 6. I believe you type that in with no spaces between your terms, and you should get full credit. Moving on. On this question, we have a fraction, and obviously it's really a division problem. It says w plus 4 divided by 3. If you don't want that divided by 3, multiply by 3. It'll cancel. What you do to one side, do to the other side. Let's rewrite our inequality. We have the w plus 4. We have the inequality less than, and then minus 24, because negative 8 times 3, negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. Let's get that w by itself. Oh yeah, by the way, I did not flip the inequality symbol because I did not multiply by a negative. All we need to do now is get that 4 over to the other side by subtracting 4, canceling out. We will have w is less than negative 28. W is less than negative 28. Type it in with no spaces between your terms, and you will get full credit. So we have another entertaining question here. We need to solve this inequality. You solve it just the way you would an equation. How do you start solving an equation? You start by simplifying whatever you can. What does simplify mean? It means distributive property and or combining like terms. So we do have distributive property right here. We have a 3. I'm going to distribute the 3. 3 times negative 2x, that is a negative 6x. 3 times, that's a negative 5. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And then I bring down the inequality. It's a greater than or equal to minus 27. Okay. Now from here, I need to solve this. I need to get x by itself. I don't want this minus 15. I don't want the minus 6. And actually, it's a multiplication of negative 6. So we're going to obviously get rid of the minus 15 first. How do you get rid of the minus 15? You do the opposite. Plus 15. What you do to one side, do to the other side. Add 15. What do we have left? We have the negative 6x. I'm going to bring that down. Negative 6x. We have the inequality. It doesn't change. It's still greater than or equal to. And we also have negative 27 plus 15. That is 12. So we have a 12 right here. So this is down to a single step inequality. I want to get rid of the multiplication of negative 6 in front of the x. How do you get rid of multiplication? You do the opposite, which is division of that same exact value, negative 6. So on our last step here, we are dividing by a negative. We are dividing by a negative. So what does that mean? That you must flip the inequality symbol. The inequality symbol is going to change to a less than or equal to. And 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. This is our final answer. And if you look for that answer, nope, it's not that one. It's not this one. What? It must be none of these are correct. Let's check it out. Voila, that is correct. None of these are correct. Okay, let's move on. Probably the most fun of them all. We're going to simplify first, right? 2 times negative x, that's negative 2x. Most students think, oh, 3 plus 2 is 5. Wrong. You can't add before multiplying. You need to distribute the positive 2 first, right? So positive 2 times negative x is negative 2x. Positive 2 times positive 9 is positive 18. Bring down the 3 that's in front, and you still need to combine like terms here. You got 3 minus 2x. You can't do that, but you could do the 3 plus 18. So what we really have on the right side is a negative 2x with a plus 21. Now that's on the right side of the inequality. On the left side, we still have the minus 5x. So I'm going to bring down the minus 5x. I'm also going to bring down the inequality, which is a less than symbol. And from there, I need to solve. So I want to get my x to the left side. How do I get rid of that minus 2x? I do the opposite, plus 2x. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So I end up with a negative 3x is less than 21, which means negative 3 times x is less than 21, which means I need to get rid of the negative 3, the multiplication of negative 3, by doing the opposite, which is dividing by negative 3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. And of course, because we are dividing by a negative, we must flip the inequality symbol, and that becomes a negative 7. X is greater than negative 7. You must type that in without any spaces between your terms. And that's about it for this question. Let's move on. So we're finally to a question that has a graph. It's an inequality. How do I know it's an inequality? Because there's shading going on. So it's either a greater than, which you shade above, or a less than, which you shade below. And it's also a solid line. So I know it's shaded below the line, so that's going to be a less than or equal to because it's a solid line. If it would have been a dotted line, shaded below, it'd just be a less than symbol because it's shaded below. If it were shaded above, it'd be a greater than symbol. because the line is solid, it would be less than or equal to. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's identify what actual line this is, and I want to go with the easiest way of graphing with mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. The b value is where it crosses the y-axis, which would be that red dot. That's the location -1. So the b value is -1. Now the m value is how much you rise and run to get from one point to the other. So you rise 1, you run 1, you rise 1, you run 1, you rise 1, you run 1. So the slope is 1 over 1, which is really just 1. Okay, so we have the m equals 1, we have the b equals -1. So our equation is usually y equals mx plus b, but in this case we know that it's shaded below, so it's going to be a y is less than, and also if the line is solid, you're going to have a solid line underneath your inequality. So it's a y is less than or equal to the m value, which is 1, x, and then plus b, which is a -1. So this is your linear inequality that is represented on this graph that's shaded below the solid line. Of course, you could write it all, instead of y is less than or equal to 1x, you could just put y is less than or equal to x minus 1. So that's what we're looking for on our multiple choice answers. But as you could see, these are not even in slope-intercept form. They are not in slope-intercept form. So what we must do is rewrite all of these equations in slope-intercept form. This one is in slope-intercept form. Y is less than or equal to -3x plus 0, because there is no b value. So we know that that's incorrect. So this one right off the bat is no good. What else could we eliminate? We could eliminate the ones that don't have a solid line underneath it. So this one, it cannot be it. Why not? Because if it doesn't have a solid line underneath the inequality, then this cannot be a solid line. So this one can't be it. And neither this one, because this would also imply that there's no solid line underneath the inequality. That means that this cannot be a solid line. It would be a dotted line. So this one cannot be it either. So maybe this one's it, or maybe none of these. So let's work on this last option. Let's get y by itself. You're going to subtract 2x to get the y by itself. Subtract 2x. You're going to have a -2y is greater than or equal to -2x plus 2. We need to get rid of that -2 in front of the y, which is really being multiplied by y, or -2 times y. So let's get rid of the multiplication by dividing by -2, dividing by -2, dividing by -2, which means because we're dividing by a negative on our last step of an inequality, we must flip the inequality symbol. See, the greater than became less than or equal to. And then the rest of the values, you're going to have a positive 1x, you don't have to put a 1, and a -1 at the very end. This is the inequality in slope-intercept form, and if we take a look at it, it is the same inequality as up here. So this is our correct answer. Moving on. On this inequality, we need to type it in with no spaces between our terms. And again, I'm going to go with the easiest way of writing an equation when they give you a graph. That would be identifying the slope and the y-intercept. It crosses the y-axis at 0, so your b value is 0. How about the m value? Well, the m value depends on if from left to right you rise or you drop. So it'd be good to pick 2 points, 2 nice points, maybe this origin and this next point right here. Those are 2 nice points. So from here to here, are you going up or are you going down? You're going down, so you're rising -1 and you're running 1. Okay, so the slope is really going down 1 and over 1, which is really just a -1. So we have the 2 things that we need. We know that m is -1 and we know that b is 0, giving us our equation y equals -1x plus 0. Okay, now keep in mind that this is not an equation. Right here we have an equation so far. It's y equals, but in reality we know it's an inequality. It's either going to be greater than or less than. And again, if it's a greater than symbol, you're going to be shading above the line. If it's a less than symbol, you're going to be shading below the line. If you have a solid line, then it's going to be a less than or equal to if it were solid, but it's not solid, so you cannot have a solid line underneath. Anyways, what you're going to type in is y is less than, don't put the or equal to, -1x plus 0. You could type that in, But what I recommend is writing it as simple as possible, which would be y is less than just negative. You don't need the 1, just put x, and you don't need to put a plus 0. So I would type this in. It's a lot safer. No spaces between your terms. That'll be correct. Let's move on, shall we? Number 16. Again, we have a linear inequality, and we have multiple choice options down here, and you could already see the correct answer. I probably shouldn't have shown you that. But as of right now, let's begin with the m value. What is the m value? Well, you got to pick 2 points, and I want to pick this point right here, and let's say this point right here. You could pick any points you want, right? You could have picked even this red dot over here and this red dot over here. So think about the slope from left to right. If you're doing the red dots, you go down 1, 2, 3. So I'd be going down 3, over, down 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So over 6. Now that fraction, negative 3/6, that actually reduces down to negative 1/2. Okay, so the slope is negative 1/2. That could have been done easier if you pick these 2 blue dots. You go down 1 over 2, that is negative 1 over 2, that's negative 1 over 2. Now the b value is right here, which is the location at negative 3. So the b value is negative 3. So now that you know the m and the b, now you could write it in y equals mx plus b form, which would be y equals m, negative 1/2, x plus b, that'd be a minus 3. This is your slope-intercept form equation, but we don't have an equation here because an equation would produce a line. So what we want to do is represent the inequality that has a shading below that dotted line. So if it's shaded below, then you're going to use a less than symbol. Again, if it's shaded below, it's a less than symbol. If it's shaded above, it's a greater than symbol. So let's go back over here, erase that equal sign, and let's shade below, which is going to be a less than symbol. Now, if this were a solid line, you'd have a solid line underneath it, but it's a dotted line, so I don't put a solid line down there. Anyways, that's our answer for that line. Let's see if any of those, we have y is greater than 1/2 x minus 3. Nope, almost, but nope. Now this next one, you can't even see it yet. It's not in slope-intercept form, so you have to actually get the y by itself first. So divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. There's an invisible 1 in front. So this middle, or this next inequality is y. You don't flip the inequality because you didn't divide by a negative. You have the negative 1/2 with an x, and the b value is negative 3. And of course, that is your correct answer right there. So that's why it's green. Let's move on. Number 17, we want to find out which inequality below represents this graph right here. So once again, you need a m and a b in order to write your equation in y equals mx plus b. I need a m, I need a b. Well, the b is easy. That one's at the y value of negative 1, negative 2. So the b value is negative 2. That's easy. Now the m value, that's the rise over run. So you got to pick 2 points. I have this point, and where's the next nice point? It is way up here on the x-axis itself. So put a dot right there. How much do you rise? How much do you run? You rise 1, 2, you run 1, 2, 3. So up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. So there's our slope-intercept form, or our m and our b for our slope-intercept form equation. If it were just a regular line, then I would write that my equation is y equals the slope 2/3 x minus 2. If it were a regular line, but it's not a regular line, it's a line with a shade above. So you are shading above, so you're shading the greater values, the ones that are above the line. So this should be a greater than symbol, okay? So y is greater than, and it is a solid line, so that means you need a solid line underneath that greater than, and then you have the 2/3 x minus 2, okay? So here's our answer. Y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 2. That is our answer. That's what we're going to be looking for on the multiple choice. And as you could see, it's not here. right? That's a negative 2/3 when you want a positive. Here's a positive 2/3 minus 2, but that's a less than symbol. We want a greater than or equal to symbol. So it's none of these slope-intercept forms. However, this is in standard form. This might end up being that if I change this standard form back to slope-intercept. So let's do exactly that. Let's get rid of the minus 2x by adding 2x. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side. Let me rewrite what I have up here. I'll have a 3y left over on the left side. I have the greater than or equal to, and I also have this. I'm just going to rewrite it, but instead of writing minus 6 plus 2x, I want to write plus 2x minus 6. So 2x minus 6. The final step would be to get rid of that multiplication of 3 right in front of the y by dividing by 3, dividing by 3, dividing by 3, giving us our final slope-intercept form inequality y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 2. Y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 2. Y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 2. Same exact inequality. So we know that this first option is the correct answer. That's why it's in green. All the rest are in red. Moving on. These are awesome problems. It's pretty simple. Whenever you have a vertical line, you need to remember that that is x equals whatever value it's crossing the x-axis through. So it's obviously crossing through the x value of 1. 1, 2, 3, right here, crosses through 1, up and down, it's vertical. So my equation of a vertical line would be x equals 1. But that equation is just a line, and we don't have just a line. We have a dotted line and shading to the left. So what does that mean? That means that instead of x equals 1, it's shaded to the left. Left means less than. And it's not a solid line, so you don't put a solid line underneath the inequality, but it's still the 1 value. Okay, so x is less than 1. If you would have had it shaded on the right side, then that would have been x is greater than 1. If it would have been shaded on the left side, but with a solid line, then that would be x is less than or equal to 1. So I hope this makes sense. All you got to do is type in x is less than 1 with no spaces between your terms, and that will give you full credit. Moving on to the next one. The next one is a horizontal line, which you should remember is y equals a certain y value. Okay, so the equation of just the line would be y equals, and in this case you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So y equals 4. That would give you a horizontal line, a solid horizontal line. But we know that this is not just a regular solid line. It's a dotted line that's shaded below. So shading below, we know it's a less than symbol. So it's going to be y is less than that value of 4. Now, if this would have been a solid line, then I'd put a solid line underneath the inequality, but it's not, so I leave it like that. So my answer is y is less than 4. Type that in with no spaces between your terms, and you'll get full credit. I do apologize for this long video, but we are done.